Welcome, Bronco Nation. My three keys to the game: Boise State versus Nevada. It's going to be at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time on the blue, Bronco Nation. This is going to be a huge game. It's going to be premiering on FS1. Boise State favored in this matchup, 6.5 points, 78.3% chance of winning according to ESPN. Boise State coming into this game 2-2, but 1-0 Mountain West, and that's the number that matters. Nevada so far is 3-1. Haven't played their conference schedule yet. This is their opening game of the conference schedule. They are motivated and they are good. This is a Nevada team that already has a Power 5 win against California, and I'm not going to say came close to winning against Kansas State, but they definitely looked at times competent of winning that game. I was expecting them to go in and win that game. So they're coming off a disappointing loss to Kansas State, motivated coming to get a win. And that's not all. This is a good Nevada team. This is a Nevada team that is as good at any point that I've seen the program. I think that they are as good as... I haven't seen a Nevada team that I would call this at this level of play since Collin Kapernick was with the program. They're playing at that level. So this is definitely a threat to Boise State and their Mountain West hopes. Really, with the rebuild year, any team on the schedule is a threat, but Boise State's moving in the right direction. We saw a lot more innovation last week against Utah State. Boise State came out and was playing much more similar to the Boise State style of play calling, at least as far as it comes to ingenuity and innovation. Now, they are moving towards a pass-heavy attack, which they just have to with the players that they have on the field. So it's not necessarily a traditional Boise State attack, which has always been so balanced, but this is a Boise State team that is ready to make a big statement, and it starts with a win against a very, very good Nevada team. Like I said, this is a rivalry game. This is a huge rivalry game, and when you look at it, this is the rivalry game for Boise State. Of all the teams we play, BYU is heating up. That's a good rivalry of the last few years. Air Force has turned into a good rivalry. Fresno State, of course, that one actually has a trophy that we win after it. San Diego State has beaten us. There are rivalries, and Boise State is really a rival to any team they play in the conference because they've always been that top team in their conference. But out of all the historic rivalries, and it is a young program here for Boise State, but out of all of their historic rivalries, Nevada is the one. Now, Boise State, like I said, a young program, football established in 1933, a year after the school was founded in 1932, but Boise State has played Nevada 43 times, starting in 1971. That was the first time that they played, and they've played each other 43 times. Boise State owns the series 30-13, but Nevada and Boise State have had some knockout, drag-out games, and Nevada, of course, owns the most memorable loss in my mind. And you talk to any Boise State fan, you say, what's the one game, the one loss that stands out in your mind? Or we do it all the time on the Bronco Nation updates page and polls. If you could change one thing in all of college football history, what would it be? And it's that loss to Nevada, and specifically the way it ended with those missed field goals down the stretch from Kyle Rossman, one of the best kickers in Boise State history when you look at stats and you look at the games he'd won. But that loss to Nevada stands out. So that created a lot of bitterness and a rivalry that was already bitter in Boise State. It seems like every year since then, Boise State has gone on a winning streak since then. That was the last time that Nevada actually beat them in 2010 in that 31-34 overtime loss. Boise State has beaten them every single year. Now, they've been close sometimes, but they're on a 6-game streak. And Nevada only has one win since the year 2000. So in the modern era of college football, they only have one win against Boise State. But because of the way that game ended, the way that game ran out, and the stakes, and what was at stake? We all know Bronco Nation was at stake there. Boise State undefeated, a chance to potentially compete for the national championship, before the Cincinnatis, before the UCS, before the American Athletic Conference, before those other teams started rearing their head in college football. Boise State was the original team that was routinely in the conversation for, are they a dark horse for the national championship, and that was their best year for it. So since that loss, every game seems like a chance for revenge, which is just only added to the rivalry. So this is a rivalry game. Anything can happen, and it's a good team this year. Nevada's had a little bit of a struggle. They've had some okay quarterbacks in the past. I thought Fajardo was pretty good for them. They've had some okay quarterbacks in the past, but they finally have a top-level quarterback again on their roster, and that makes Nevada so much more dangerous. Top players, we've already kind of led into it, so let's just jump into it right now. For Nevada, Carson Strong for Nevada is a potential number 1, number 2 round draft pick. Not number 1 in the nation, but first or second round draft pick. He's 955 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. he is an incredible quarterback. He's been previewed on a couple different draft sites as as one of the top, if not the top draft potential quarterback in the Mountain West. Now, Jack Hayner, I always have difficulty saying his name. I keep wanting to say Haney, but I think it's Hayner. Rise to power. His performance over the last few weeks has definitely started cementing him as a top quarterback in the Mountain West, top draft pick. But Carson Strong came into the season with that title, and he's definitely played up to it in the games that he has played in. Now, another top quarterback for Boise State, and this is bad news for them with their struggles in the running game, is Tua for Nevada. He's only rushed for 25 times, but he's rushed for 155 yards, 6.2 yards per average on his carries against a Boise State team that's giving up 4.5 yards per carry. Nevada can hurt you in the air, which is where they have preferred to go to. They have Tua has 155 yards rushing, and they have another back with 90 yards rushing. But that's really it. They have a couple other numbers here and there, but their main offense has come through the air, and and that's strength on strength, because Boise State's defense, though they have had their struggles this season, their best players are in the secondary. I mean, that's where you have J.L. Skinner. That's where you have Kaniho. That's where you have Tyreek LaBeouf. I mean, that's where you have Tyreek Jones. I mean, the best players for Boise State are in their secondary, and while Boise State secondary has struggled at times, they've gotten better and better each week. So Nevada's going to have to go to that running game. There's going to be holes there, but Boise State has a chance here to come up against a top quarterback in the country, or not in the country necessarily, but definitely in the Mountain West, and a good quarterback to come up against a top quarterback and to prove their mettle. This is a proving week for Boise State defense, especially in the secondary there. Now, top players for Boise State. I've already mentioned the defense, but it's kind of a unit. I'm going to specify on a couple of key players for them, and they're going to be the offensive players here. Boise State, win or lose, the defense is going to do their best, but Nevada's going to be able to go out there and score a lot of points. I mean, that's a given. So the win or lose this game is going to come through the offense. It's going to come through Tim Plow, whether or not he's been able to, we saw it against Utah State, moving the right direction, if he's been able to abandon the running game, which doesn't work, and move to the creative, pass-heavy attack, air raid creativity that he was able to show against Utah State. But that offense is only going to succeed if he embraces it, is only going to succeed if Boise State's top playmaker, he's been key playmaker a few weeks here, it performs well. Hank Bachmeier, 1,132 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. It should be a lot more, because there's been a lot more open receivers that he hasn't been able to hit because of some accuracy issues. But if Boise State is going to win this game against a top quarterback team in the Mountain West here, they're going to have their own top quarterback. This has got to be the game where Hank Bachmeier fully grows up. He shows what the talent that he's had is developed through coaching, hopefully this week, is developed into the potential that we know that he has in him, and it shows up big in this game, because Boise State is coming up against a good defense in Nevada and a great offense in Nevada, and they're going to have to outscore them, because defense, no matter what they do, they're not going to necessarily, you do all the scheming that you want to, and hopefully some picks and turnovers happen, but Nevada's going to be able to move the ball against this Boise State defense. So the offense is going to have to come up big and be able to outscore Nevada if they want to win. Now, that is also going to depend on the performance of Helani. Now, I'm not saying in the running game, I'm hoping Boise State moves away from the running game, but Boise State has started to use their running backs in the passing game. Cyrus had a 50-plus yard reception last week. Helani had a key third down reception, and Helani is a back with very, very, very good hands. That's a lot of varies, but it's deservedly so. He has very good hands. He moves well after the catch, and he's a runner who is very, very elusive. And if he can just get past the terrible offensive line and stop getting hit in the backfield, if Boise State can find a way to jump over their offensive line through the passing game, get it into the hands of their playmakers here, they need to get their running backs involved more in the passing game, because Cyrus and Helani both have great top-end speed and good maneuverability, but especially Helani here, who, after being injured at the beginning of the season, has started to pick up. He has 30 rushes for 96 yards, and he has 4 receptions for 37 yards so far. So it's a running back here in Helani who has good hands and good maneuverability, and I think that he needs to become a key part of this new offensive style. Just because they're not running the ball anymore doesn't mean there's no place for running backs, and especially a running back like Helani, with his ability to help out in the receiving game, can be a huge boon and not a detraction for this Boise State offense if they use him correctly. So Bachmeier, Helani, 2 top players here for Boise State. Now the third one here, my third top player, and I'm not going to go in depth on the top players side of things, because he is a key to the game, is Dalmez. The kicker for Boise State is going to be a huge key player for Boise State this week, and I'm going to talk about him when I get to my final key to the game. So we're going to move on. Keys to the game here. First one here, incorporate the RPO. Nick Wade pointed it out. I'd already been thinking about it, but he's absolutely right. Boise State doesn't have a running game right now, at least not in the traditional sense. But they started running Bachmeier last week. It's the first week that he's had positive rushing yards. He had 44 yards on 7 carries, which included sacks, and he looked good. He looked good when he was out running there. And Boise State's offense definitely looked like they were moving at a better clip than they have been. And Boise State's running game certainly improved with the variety of shifts and packages that Tim Plow was putting out there. But part of that was due to the danger of the running quarterback. It's definitely an element that Boise State needs to add to their game. And Bachmeier looked good out there. Now, I don't think he's the best runner on the team, and I would love to see Jack Sears out there if he's healthy. If he's healthy, there is no excuse to keep him on the bench. I'm not saying that Bachmeier should be benched. I'm not saying that. I do think that Bachmeier is the starting quarterback for this team, but Jack Sears is an athlete for this program who is a good passer and a good runner, and if Boise State is shifting to a style of attack where they are incorporating the quarterback run game, they need to be using Jack Sears, at least situationally. Move him in a couple of packages, just like we used to use Montel Cozart. Use him where he can throw the ball or run the ball and force Nevada to cover that option there. The run-pass option will allow the running game to move outside of the terrible offensive line blocking. It will give them another element to their scheme, where if the line, if Nevada calls the bluff and moves forward, Boise State can always pass it over the top. But, get that option out there where Bachmeier can either keep or pitch it out to Helani. Helani's a great running back. He's a good running back with good speed maneuverability. He's looking stronger every week. I think he's going to be much stronger this week. If Boise State can move outside, get themselves moving away from that defensive, that pass rush and that defensive push, and get Helani out in the open field where he can make a couple guys miss and get upfield for some big yards, I think this Boise State running game could start to be a part of this offense, even though I don't think that it should be the primary or even the main or even a large part of the offense. It could start being a contributing member and not a detraction. Boise State has got to stop having big plays in the passing game and then turning around, handing it to the running back and killing themselves. I mean, Boise State last week played great. They played much better. They were moving the ball, and then they would just run the ball, and it would almost always be in the traditional running game, hand off to the running back, no matter who was out there, Cyrus Van Buren or Helani. It was usually a tackle for loss, which killed the drive, and then Boise State ended up having to punt. So Boise State can still have a running game, and if they are going to insist on trying to continue to push that running game and try to force the defenders to come close to the line to open up for receivers down the field, which is a good plan. They can't do it traditionally. We've already seen the Wildcat option. We've already seen the jet sweeps. We've already seen handoffs to the wide receivers. And now if Boise State can add in this RPO, this Coastal Carolina style attack a little bit, I'm not saying go all the way, but a little bit of that RPO option, then they can be an even more dangerous team under this new Tim Plow system. That's my first key to the game, is incorporate the RPO. Number 2 is get the tight ends more involved. Boise State has some tight ends here who have great hands, but Boise State really hasn't used them effectively. Boise State has completed 86 passes for 1,132 yards total passing. So most of that, that's all Bachmeier right there. So Bachmeier's completions, he's had 86 completions so far this season. Now, only 9 of those completions went to tight ends, and only 93 yards went to tight ends. So 9 completions, 93 yards is a pretty good average. I mean, you're looking right there at 10.3 yards, or 10, man, I'm do math in public. It's hard, folks. So it would be just over 10 yards per carry. Anyhow, sorry. So Boise State has had over 10 yards per reception by the tight ends here. Most of those have gone to Riley Smith, 5 receptions, 51 yards. But Hopper has a touchdown, and Raftel, who I thought played good against UCF, who has 2 receptions against UCF. He had showed strong hands even while getting hit, being able to hold on to the ball. Boise State needs to, when they're moving into this pass-heavy attack, the tight ends can still be involved in the game, and there needs to be more passing options for Bachmeier. Boise State's already provided those options by reaching into their very, very deep wide receiver core, and we're seeing new faces all the time making big plays. But the tight ends, especially Riley Smith, Riley Smith should have at least 4 touchdowns by my reckoning right now, but Bachmeier has missed him on big on 3 of those and had one that was a little high go through Riley Smith's hands. So Riley Smith, by my count, should have 4 touchdowns so far this season, but doesn't have any because Bachmeier keeps missing him. So Bachmeier needs to get more accurate. I mean, that's just a given right off the bat there. But Boise State needs to use their tight ends more efficiently because they can be a huge play. They can be huge playmakers in this game. They can be huge contributors, and it will just add another element that Boise State, because they don't have a running game that they can rely upon to soften up the offense. So what do they have to soften up the offense? They need to soften up the offense with multiple looks, with being creative in their formations, and being creative and having playmakers across the field that the defense can't key in on one guy, that they're having to go to, they can't double team anyone, so they're either having to go man or they're having to go zone. Both options either give opportunities to beat the defender down the field or open up holes. Both of those options are good for Boise State. It ends up doing the same thing that a running game would do, which is take defenders out of the secondary and force them to cover someone else. It does the same thing that a running game would do. So adding tight ends into this game in a more effective and efficient manner, getting more pass opportunities for tight ends is going to play big for Boise State. And of course, it's Boise State. Tight ends have always been a huge part of the Boise State offensive scheme, and Nevada, games against Nevada have traditionally been chances for players that you haven't previously made huge impacts to make those big impacts. I mean, we all remember number 47, the Hammer, Dan Paul, who fullback, not a tight end, but 3 touchdowns against Nevada in 2009. Yeah, 3 touchdowns. I got the hat trick against Nevada. Basically the same route every time. Grant Hendrick had his kind of breakout game after Joe Southwood got hurt against Nevada. Nevada is a good opportunity because not just because historically there's been chances to go out and get those big wins, but because for players to make those big plays, but because it is a huge matchup. And it is teams that study each other methodically, that you have to pull out some stops to get those surprises, to go outside of your normal packages to go out and be able to get those wins. And Boise State has always, like I said, they've gone into those trick plays against Nevada. They've gone into using those different players to get those wins, and it's worked successfully for the most part. And I think that the key here is using those tight ends to open up the defense. So the first key, incorporate the RPO. Number 2, get the tight ends more involved. Number 3, third key to the game, is kicking game has to come through. Now, I've already talked about it at the beginning of the video, and I know I'm drudging up specters of the past, and I don't like doing that. But the truth is that Boise State has a history of losing the big games through the kick, not just against Nevada, but against other teams as well. And they have right now one of the best kickers in their program history, I believe. At least so far, he's shown that potential. And I think by the time it's all said and done, it's his goal. By the time it's all said and done, I do believe Dalmas will be the best kicker in Boise State history. But it starts with big wins and big game moments. And I think that this game will present those opportunities for Dalmas. I think it's going to be, like I said, a very close game, an offensive battle here. I think that there's going to be times when Boise State's offense, they've already shown it this season, where they're not going to be able to finish, and they're going to end up short of the end zone. And it might be outside of the normal, 40 yards or so range that you would expect of a kicker. Dalmas is going to have to make the big kicks. He's going to have to make the hard kicks with a lot of pressure on him in a big matchup, that has already not been friendly to kickers. And kickers, it's all about the head game. I mean, they call kickers head cases for a reason, because it's all about, and I'm not trying to put any more pressure on Dalmas, but the truth is out there. The games here, Boise State versus Nevada, when you have games that have been lost by field goals, that 2010 game there, it just plays into the factor. It plays into the lore of the matchup, and everyone's talking about it. He knows about it. It's out there. And so he's going to be having to play under an incredible amount of pressure because it's a rivalry, an incredible amount of pressure because he's probably going to be called in key moments, and an incredible amount of pressure just because of the legacy of the matchup itself. Dalmas, a quarterback who has the leg, who has the talent, so he has the skill, but this is going to really prove if he has the mindset. I believe he does. And I absolutely have 100% faith in him. But he's 16 of 19 in his career, long of 51, 2 of 2 from 50. This year, however, he's 9 of 11. He's had a punt blocked because he kicked. Well, now there's a lot of factors that went into that, but one of them was the fact that he kicked it too low on that for a kick that was only 36 or 38 yards. Didn't need to be kicked that low. So he's already had a punt blocked. And he's missed a field goal from 50. It was long, but it was a area that he was perfect last season. And his long so far is 40. But like I said, games against Nevada have been close. We won by 4 the last time that Boise State played in 2018. They played won by 6 in 2012, won by 7 in 2008. Of course, had the memorable 69-67 victory against 2007, which required, I believe it was the kicker or the up man to throw a touchdown pass. A Boise State player went pretended like he was going off the field and just kind of stood there. And then when they snapped the field goal, I'm trying to remember who threw the pass, and yeah, they threw it. It was a beautiful play. Threw the touchdown pass to a wide open receiver out there. Nevada had no idea what was coming. It was like a 40-yard touchdown. Brilliant. So Boise State has big wins against Nevada, but they've been very, very, very close margins of error, and the field goal kicking game has come huge into those matchups. It took a field goal, I believe it was a field goal, to even push Boise State to that 69-67 opportunity in 2007 to even get it into overtime. So kicking game is going to be huge. It's always huge in close matchups, but it is biggest in the games, in the rivalry games. And I think that a great kicking performance here by Boise State, by Dalmez, would do a lot to dispel some of those feelings that still hang around from the game in 2010. So I don't like dredging up the past, but with a rivalry game series like this, you got to. 3 keys to the game: incorporate the RPO, get tight ends more involved, and kicking game come through. So summary here, and we're just going to be real brief. Nevada is a good team. They're scoring 29.3 points per game, 353 passing yards per game. Now, they're only rushing like 77 yards per game, so it hasn't been a huge part of their attack, but when they do it well, like I said, with 6.2 yards per carry by Tua there. So Boise State, I think, is going to take away a large part of that passing game and force Nevada to the ground. Nevada's probably already coming in with a run-heavy attack because that's where teams have succeeded against Boise State. So if Boise State can take that away, if Boise State can finally play up front in the trenches, if there's a game to do it, it's this one, and force Nevada to the air. Boise State's secondary is good enough to beat Nevada, I believe, and they have chances. They're going to have a lot of chances, I think, to get some of those big turnovers that have been huge for Boise State so far this season. So this is a very good Nevada team. There should not be, no one's overlooking this matchup, neither team. Utah State was a little bit last week, but Nevada is definitely not overlooking Boise State, and likewise, Boise State's not overlooking Nevada. This is a huge game for both programs. Boise looking to get to 2-0, Nevada looking to win their first game of their conference schedule here, and it is going to be an offensive shootout. My final prediction here, I do think Boise State pulls off the win. I think they're going to be over that over there of 6.5. I think the final score comes down to 41-31, but I could definitely see it being much closer than that, especially if especially if the run game is not able to be stopped for Nevada here. So I'm expecting a very, very, very good contest. I am incredibly excited to watch this one, incredibly nervous to watch this one. Out of all the games that I've watched this season, this is the one I'm the most nervous about. You know, UCF was a tough opponent with Boise State potentially coming in. I knew that they could lose that game, but I was pretty confident that they could win. Oklahoma State, I thought Boise State could lose, but I wasn't too worried about it because Boise State, in my mind, was already out of the New Year's Six anyway. I was hoping for a good game against a good opponent. Against Nevada, it's a game that Boise State could lose. I'm predicting a win, but it's a game that Boise State could lose, and it means so much to win this one. This is the rivalry game. There's too much pain already tied up in this series. Boise State has, if they don't win another game this season, they've got to win this game. This and BYU, for me, were the two biggest games that I was looking at coming into this season, as far, at least once you get past Oklahoma State, that's a big one. But Nevada and BYU, for me, those are the two biggest rivalries for Boise State, at least in my perspective. And getting this win against a historic rival in Nevada, but we're going next week to go play a modern rival in BYU, is just two huge games on the docket here for Boise State back-to-back. So like I said, I'm predicting a win. Boise State 41 to Nevada 31. I hope my failures at public math haven't shifted your confidence in me. But it should be a good game. I'm excited for this one. And I got to say, it's one... I'm battling towards the end. It's a game that I have been looking forward to since 2018. I don't like how it shifts where Boise State doesn't get to play its main rivals, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Nevada every few years. And I've been looking forward for Bachmeier to go out and get a chance to go out and get that win, which would be a huge resume win for him on his Boise State legacy and career. So, big game for Boise State. 3 keys to the game. Given the predictions, Let's go out and get this win for Bronco Nation. Boise State, you got it. Make sure that you wear orange. It's orange today, and Boise State is premiering some legacy helmets, which are going to be very, very exciting. Thank you for watching this video. As always, make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, go Big Blue.